One Championship is doomed. So, about a month or so ago, One Championship released their financials for 2023, which were also really past their due date, and they are grimmer than my prospects on Tinder as a 5'6" manlet. $90 million in losses, and that's up from $60.8 million in 2022. And that brings One's cumulative losses, which is the amount of money they've lost since being founded in 2011, to over $530 million. Like, bro, One isn't just over. It never even began. I mean, it's so over for One that Lucas Tracy's GOAT list was a bigger news story in the MMA community than the financial disaster that One is going through. And the bad news for One and their CEO, Charity Satyendong, doesn't end there. Although President Charity has denied them, there have been many rumors about Amazon Prime Video walking away from their broadcasting partnership with One. And furthermore, there have been back-to-back cancellations of One Championship events in the United States. So, in the coming year or so, One Championship may no longer have a way to reach fans in America, and it will be less accessible to fans over there than ever before. But why has One fallen to this point? How has a company that once used to be pushed as the Eastern alternative to the UFC, with Charity Satyendong being hailed as the Asian Dana White, burned through cash faster than the United States does through its defense budget when supporting a certain country in the Levant that, if mentioned here, will get this video instantly demonetized? But anyways, today, we will be going through why One Championship is doomed, how it got to the point where it is now, and what we can learn from their mistakes as a promotion. I will also be going through the way that One Championship tried to censor me by abusing the YouTube copyright claim system against me, because of how well the original version of this video about them was doing, which is also why my voice might sound a little bit different at times. Also, there have been a few new developments in the impending collapse of One Championship, including fighters being released, and even the start of an armed conflict between Thailand and Cambodia. So, make sure to stay tuned for that part. And if you just want the new stuff, skip to 14 minutes and 52 seconds into this video. So, without further waiting, let's get into the deep dive. So, the financial information that was released from One was from 2023, and if you look into the data, you'll see that One has grown their revenue from $54.3 million to $68 million. But at the same time, as I said earlier, their losses have far outpaced that. And what's truly bad news for the company is that at the end of 2023, they only had $24.6 million of net assets left over, which is a pitifully small sum of money for a company that boasts about being in the top 10 global sports properties in terms of views and online engagement. However, it's not all bad news, because One did get an injection of $50 million in new capital from the Qatar Investment Authority in October of 2024, giving them around $75 million to work with for this year. But that's still not going to be anywhere near enough to cover their expenses if they are anywhere near as high as they were in 2023. And that is why One has been really focused on cutting their expenses. They've moved most of their events to Thailand, and have also moved their main operations there as well, as costs in Thailand are far lower than they are in Singapore. And they've also laid off a lot of their staff in Singapore as well. One Championship's holding company, One Group Holdings, is also registered in the Cayman Islands, a self-governing British territory that is known as a tax haven, as companies there are not subjected to a large corporate tax. And on top of all of that, Charity Satyendong has been begging for support from the Thai government after he felt sad about them prioritizing Formula One racing over One Championship. Then, when it comes to their actual events, they have been shifting away from mixed martial arts and focusing more and more on kickboxing and Muay Thai. Kickboxers and Muay Thai fighters are much cheaper than MMA fighters for a number of reasons. Many of them are from countries like Thailand, where the cost of living is relatively low, and even for those who are from countries like Japan, there aren't many options left for them to get decent pay. I mean, just take a look at this contract for a One Championship Muay Thai fighter. Yes, that's $2,500 to show, and $1,000 to win by knockout. And apparently, this is a contract for a Western fighter, not for a Thai fighter, who all likely get paid much less. So, one is definitely doing a lot right with their cost-cutting measures. But is it enough to help them overcome their financial burdens and achieve profitability? Well, as Supreme Leader Charity Sit-Yadong kind of admitted recently, no. And the reason why is simple. If one keeps on putting on shows in Thailand and filling fight cards with low-cost Thai fighters, the vast majority of the audience is going to be Thais. And since Thailand is a low-cost country, one championship is going to have lower revenue because Thai audiences won't be paying as much as an American, European, or Japanese audience. So, just to put this in perspective, let's look at the ticket prices for a one championship show in Thailand. And before we go through this section, I want to give a massive shout out to the account Tetsuya on X. He covers a lot of the news related to kickboxing and Muay Thai, and he's the guy who got me all of the numbers on one championship's financials, as well as the ticket prices you're about to see here. So yes, please go follow him on X and on Instagram if you're at all interested in Muay Thai and kickboxing. Anyways, let's get started by looking at the ticket prices for one's Lumpini Stadium shows, which is where they do their one Friday fights. So if you look at this chart here, you'll see that even the most expensive tickets for these events cost 3,500 Thai baht, which is around $107. And at all of these events, President Charity is handing out anywhere from 3 to 5 performance bonuses, with each bonus being worth 350,000 Thai baht, which is basically 10,000 US dollars. That means that in order to cover the costs of the performance bonuses alone, one championship needs to be selling 300 to 500 of their most expensive seats to these one Friday fight shows. Oh, but the crazy part about all of this is, they only have about 150 of these 3,500 baht seats. So even if they sold every single one of them, they'd be nowhere near close to covering the money for their bonuses. But of course, as you might have guessed already, one isn't even close to selling out these cards. According to what Tetsuya has told me, and based upon what I have found on sites like Reddit and Twitter, one championship is handing out free tickets for these fight cards. Charity Sit-Yadong really lives up to his name by allowing Muay Thai gyms to give out as many free tickets as they want to. So even if an event at Lumpini Stadium is packed, it's highly unlikely they sold out that card. But those aren't the only problems that one has to deal with, because remember, if you're putting on shows that are mostly Muay Thai in Thailand, you're going to be competing with the local Thai promotions. And this is where the Rajadamnern World Series comes in. Rajadamnern World Series, or RWS for short, is Thailand's premier Muay Thai promotion, and the numbers don't lie about that. If you look at the numbers on One Thailand and RWS's revenue, you'll see that RWS has massively outperformed One in terms of revenue, and of course, profit. RWS generates over 1 million baht on a daily basis. Meanwhile, One is getting nowhere near close to that number. And this is actually in part due to geography. The stadium where RWS holds its shows, the historic Rajadamnern Stadium, is in the heart of Bangkok. This makes RWS's shows very accessible to tourists, and of course, tourists, they're the guys in Thailand who have a lot of money. Meanwhile, Lumpini Stadium is 40 minutes away by car. So yeah, no wonder President Charity is handing out free tickets. It's kind of a hassle to get there. So what's apparent from this is that One is simply going to make much less revenue if they keep putting on shows in Thailand than if they were to put them on elsewhere. However, the way that doing business in a low-cost country can be made profitable is by exporting the product to a high-cost country and selling said product at prices that are fitting for a high-cost country. In other words, the way that one championship could make their budget-friendly Thailand setup work is by getting a lot of viewers from the US, Europe, and Japan to tune in. But that's where the potential loss of the Amazon Prime Video deal kicks in. Yeah, if One isn't going to be getting viewers from that platform, I don't know how they'll be getting Western fans to watch. Furthermore, kickboxing and Muay Thai simply aren't that popular in the West. And while you might get some viewers to tune in for Rod Tang or Superlek or Takeru, they won't be watching nameless Thai guys fighting for $500 to give each other CTE. And in Japan, the one country they could go to get decently high revenue, they're going to be competing with Ryzen for pay-per-view and ticket sales. So, now that one may no longer be available on Amazon, I simply have no clue where one could get new viewers from. You know, they certainly aren't going to be getting them from One Fight Arena, which is their official game on the App Store. I mean, just take a look at this. Well, it does give Takeru's nickname, the Natural Born Crusher, a whole new meaning. But, jokes aside, making stuff like this slopified garbage they call a game is part of the reason why one is in such dire straits right now. For example, did you know that glorious leader Charity Sit-Yadong once had the enlightened idea
of setting up an esports league?
Because the target demographic for esports and fighting totally overlap, right? And really, both the esports league and the mobile games are both symptoms of the same core problem at the heart of One Championship. One Championship tried to do way too much, way too soon. And let me explain. One Championship was founded in 2011, with venture capitalists backing it because Charity told them it was going to be a viable alternative to the UFC. Back then, they were mostly doing mixed martial arts, with a little bit of kickboxing and Muay Thai and grappling mixed in. And if the enlightened guru Charity Sit-Yadong had stuck to doing mid-sized events in Singapore and the US, while they may not have grown as quickly, they probably could have kept the losses to a minimum. But of course, that's not how companies funded by venture capitalists tend to operate. If you've got all of that financial backing, the goal is going to be growth at all costs. And that's the path that one pursued. They went crazy with the social media campaigns and advertising. They put on all these big budget events. They gave away $50,000 bonuses to fighters, with each bonus probably costing more than the entire gate. One Championship blew themselves up like a balloon. And let's be frank, they also probably botted a lot of their social media engagement to look good for their investors. So let's just take a look at the numbers for this video on One Championship's YouTube channel. At the time of this recording, this video was released 2 days ago, and it has 26,496 views. However, it only has 177 likes and only 6 comments. At the time of this recording, my most recent video was released 4 days ago, and it has 13,500 views, but it has 986 likes and 387 comments. And for further comparison, let's look at Ryzen's YouTube channel. Ryzen released their English language trailer for Super Ryzen 4 2 days ago, and it currently has 28,007 views. And it has 426 likes and 55 comments. And remember, most of Ryzen's viewers are Japanese. Similar release dates and view count, but with over 3 times as many likes and 10 times as many comments. And yeah, look, even though there's no 100% concrete proof that One Championship inflates its numbers, it's just really fishy when a company that supposedly gets all of these impressions and social media interactions, and apparently gets more than the UFC in some cases, is unable to turn a profit after a decade in business. One Championship is a paper tiger, and it is now about to fold in on itself. Now that the money is drying up, their best talent is leaving. Their former 2-weight MMA champion, Rainier de Ridder, joined the UFC and told everybody,
I feel I have to do for other fighters. If you think of signing with One Championship, don't. It's that simple. You should not. There's nothing there. There's no fights. You're just wrong if you do this. If you sign there, this is a bad mistake.
And now, Mikey Musumeci, who was One Championship's biggest grappling star, is also now with the UFC as the poster boy of their UFC BJJ promotion. So, the only guys who are going to stay with One, in the end, are the guys who have to stay there. The kickboxers and the Muay Thai fighters. And here's the thing. Many of those kickboxing and Muay Thai fights are really good. And they do have many entertaining fighters whom I'd feel bad for if One Championship were to go under. And in the original video, it was at this point that I brought up Tetsuya's ideas on how to help One achieve profitability. And then, offered to spend all of the money I made off the video to buy tickets to 173. But since One Championship decided to strike that video down, I'm not going to have any mercy on them. Instead, we are going to go over even more bad news for One Championship and Charity Sityodtong. But first, I'll let you guys know what happened with the copyright strike. So, just to explain how YouTube works, there is a difference between Content ID claims and copyright strikes. Content ID claims are automated and don't affect your channel negatively. The video might end up getting completely demonetized and have all of the ad revenue taken by the claimant, which sucks, but that's about it. But with a copyright strike, those have to be manually submitted. So, since One Championship copyright struck my video, that means that an employee from One had to go and submit a manual request to YouTube to get my video removed. And this is serious stuff, because if I get 2 more copyright claims on my channel, this channel could get terminated. And I actually found the One Championship employee who submitted the claim by checking the email address it was sent from. And on LinkedIn, it says that he is the Senior Director of Marketing and Social Media. Now, please, do not go and harass this guy. There's a reason why I'm not showing his name or personal details on the screen. But the fact that One Championship is sending their top-level staff after a YouTuber with 10,000 subscribers shows just how desperate they are. And I get why President Charity had my original video censored. My original video got over 20,000 views in 15 hours, making it my fastest growing video ever. And that's including my meat-sized tier list video. It probably was on track to get 100,000 views or more by the end of its lifespan. But here's the thing. If One Championship were actually a success, and if all the social media engagement they're supposedly getting was real, would they bother going out of their way to censor a video from a small YouTuber that might get a few 100,000 views at the very most? I mean, Patrick CC, a YouTuber with 200 times as many subscribers as me, made a video titled, "Why the UFC Sucks Now," and that has over 1.1 million views, and the UFC haven't done a thing. And we know it's gotten even more reach than that since XQC has reacted to the video on stream. And that video by Patrick CC used all sorts of copyrighted material from the UFC, including fight footage from TNT Sports. But the UFC doesn't care to take the video down, because they know that their position in the combat sports industry won't be challenged by something like that. Meanwhile, One Championship seemingly can't stand the idea of a tiny MMA YouTuber with 200 times fewer subscribers than Patrick calling out the fact that their financials are looking terrible and that they probably bought their social media pages. And here's another thing. They claimed the entire video, which is patently false and defamatory. So by claiming the entire video, does that mean that CEO Charity Sityodtong is claiming ownership over my words? I guess so. And in regards to using one's intellectual property, they're actually 100% alright with it as long as you're glazing them. The best example of this is Patrick Gavia, who has videos about One Championship and Charity Sityodtong that not only have millions of views on YouTube, but include footage from their events and fights. And then, there's also the fact that One Championship has deliberately reached out to MMA YouTubers in the past, begging them to cover their content, as you're about to hear from MMA Guru right now.
One FC content would be dope. Yeah, they've messaged me saying I can use content, so I'll try and find a way. One FC reached out to the channel saying they see what I was doing, they see the views, and they allow me to use any of their content and no copyright risk whatsoever. So shout the f out to One FC. I'm probably not going to do any videos on it, but now that you've said that and reached out, if I can, I will. You know what I mean? So there you go. You know what I mean? Like if there's a trending video and something happens, like I'll be way more inclined to make a fucking video on it now. Thank you guys.
So yeah, let's take a look at One Championship's values again. All right, so this is from Group 1 Holdings page on the website of the World Economic Forum, and it says here, and I quote, "Through its marquee sports properties, One Championship and One Esports, and its millennial community, One is a celebration of the age's greatest cultural phenomena, martial arts and gaming, and the values of integrity, humility, honor, respect, courage, discipline, and compassion. Interesting. Very interesting. Because when I think of values like respect, humility, discipline, and compassion, the MMA guru is literally the last guy I would think of.
I'd honestly, chat, yes or no, I feel like Brendan Allen is too dumb to be gay. I know it's a weird take to say that, yeah. But I actually think there's certain people that are just too dumb to be gay. In a way.
Now, don't get me wrong. That's exactly what makes Guru funny. The way he trashes fighters is hilarious, and the irreverent humor is very good. But it's the polar opposite of what one championship should be going for, right? You know, if I were an investor, I would be very curious and perhaps concerned about the lack of alignment between one's stated values and the content creators they are trying to do business with. But that's just me. So it's quite clear that one is completely fine with content creators using their intellectual property, even if it conflicts with their supposed values. They just want it to be completely uncritical of them. And that's because any honest talk about their financial situation and the lack of potential markets to expand into might get the final few investors they have to cut off their funding and leave. And you can tell that's the case because that's what's already happening. The Qataris are holding a UFC event this year, and if you remember, the Qatar Investment Authority is one of Charity Sit-Yadong's precious final investors. But that's not the end of Charity's troubles. Recently, One Championship released 5 fighters, including former atomweight submission grappling champion Danielle Kelly and 4 MMA fighters. So, at first glance, you might think that One Championship and Charity Sit-Yadong had finally learned their lesson and was following the advice that Tetsuya had and finally started switching to pure kickboxing and Muay Thai organization. But sadly for One's investors, that's not the case because for some reason, One Championship decided to sign Helena Krivar, a female grappling star. Because yes, this is exactly what fans of kickboxing and Muay Thai want to see. They want to see women's submission grappling. I swear to God, after seeing this announcement, I can't help but think that One is getting some sort of consulting from the combat sports equivalent of Sweet Baby Inc., because this is the exact opposite of what fans want. Many fans don't want women's MMA. What makes Charity Sit-Yadong think that the fans want women's grappling? Most One Championship fans don't even want men's grappling. It's just absolute insanity. It makes zero sense from a business perspective. And speaking of fans, I'm starting to seriously wonder if One even has those. Because One Championship has 1.1 million followers on X, and most of the time, they're getting 1 comment per post. And half of the time, it's just a bot promoting crypto. So yeah, just saying that I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the followers on Twitter are paid for as well. Oh yeah, and as the cherry on top, when it comes to all of this bad news for One Championship, there have been border clashes between Cambodia and Thailand, and some Muay Thai fighters have been called up to serve at the front lines. Now, I don't think this is anything major, since Cambodia and Thailand have now signed a ceasefire. But still, if this somehow escalates into a full-on war, that's the end of One Championship right there. Bye-bye. They would have to completely close down. But it's still highly unlikely that will happen, so I'm sure Charity isn't too worried. So, at this point, you might be wondering, why am I being so harsh on One Championship? Even in my original video, you might say that I didn't have to be so mean towards the CEO of One Championship by calling him Charity. And here's the thing, alright? I'm actually a huge fan of Charity Sit-Yadong's efforts to use the not-for-profit organization that is One Championship to take wealth from the Qatari elite and redistribute it to underpaid kickboxers and Muay Thai fighters. In that sense, he's a modern-day Robin Hood, and should be praised for that. However, he is also the guy who is known for holding MMA fighters in contract hell. In fact, Renier de Ridder had to break his contract with One and take a fight in UAE Warriors before signing with the UFC because One simply refused to let him go. And you could tell how much One Championship was holding RDR back by simply looking at his fight record. When Renier de Ridder was at One, there was nearly a 1.5 year gap between his fights with Anatoly Malikin. But ever since he was released from One, Renier de Ridder has fought literally 5 times in a single year. He took his fight in UAE Warriors on July 27th of 2024, and he fought Robert Whittaker on July 26th of 2025. The guy has been crazy active. In those 1.5 years between the Malikan fights is time that Rainier de Ritter will never get back. And there are still MMA fighters like Reese McLaren who are begging to be released from ONE. And then there's that time when Charity said that Japanese fighters who come to ONE get crushed, which is a fantastic and incredibly intelligent thing to say when you know that's the only country in the world that's willing to pay $200 for seats to a kickboxing event. Charity has also been forced to apologize in the past for saying that a popular Japanese kickboxer named Kaito was a coward who should be fighting in smaller promotions because he refused to fight an opponent who was overweight and missed the correct weigh-in times. Charity might be quite charitable with his investors' money, but not so much with his words. You know, he might be a bit of a tsundere. But after striking down my original video, I think Charity Sit-Yadong and ONE Championship have shown how afraid they are. How scared they are of losing the veneer of being a super popular promotion that, if given just a few more years, could rub shoulders with the UFC. They need to present themselves as successful, as popular, as a brand that investors want to throw their money at. But by doing things like putting down the fighters from an entire country, holding top-tier talent in contract hell, signing talent for bouts that nobody wants to see, and calling fighters who don't want to fight opponents who missed weight cowards, ONE is doing serious harm to their own reputation. ONE Championship's failure is a result of poor management, poor PR, and focusing on boosting social media impressions for Nielsen in order to fool more investors over building an actual fan base. And Charity, maybe that's why my YouTube channel, which is less than a year old, has made more profit than your company has in over a decade. So yeah, Charity, as a final word from me to you and the ONE Championship staff who have sat through this video on your little Microsoft Teams meeting, during which I can guarantee you half the participants are playing video games or watching anime, once you guys go bankrupt in the next few years, I will gladly go down to the ONE Championship office along with Jack Slack to pick up a spinny chair. I will also be willing to buy your entire fight library for $20. So yeah, see you at the bottom, Charity.